and welcome to HITC Sport. And right, with the season pretty much over, let's take a look at every Premier League club's rock bottom moment this season. The game which really made the fans sick in their mouth. Arsenal 2-1 versus Eintracht Frankfurt. Trying to pinpoint a rock bottom moment in Arsenal's wretched season is a bit like trying to find a bad actor in the cast of Hollyoaks. Which one do I pick? Sure, many Arsenal fans probably felt like sticking a golf club in their eye after watching them crash out of Europe's second tier competition to Olympiacos. But no, I'm going to go for the 2-1 Europa League group stage defeat to Eintracht Frankfurt at the Emirates. A result so laughably bad, Unai Emery was given the boot just 12 hours later, and considering how long it took this club to sack their previous manager, this was like getting out of a 20-year marriage that had been stale for 10 bastard years, only to chuck the next one in the bin the moment she forgot to pull down the toilet seat. The club were chewed up and spat halfway down the league, hadn't won in 7 games. This was a pretty gutless and spine-wrenching performance. Aston Villa 6-1 versus Man City. Maybe it's a bit unfair choosing a 6-1 walloping against Man City, considering this club could literally eat any team in the world for breakfast, but it was the manner of the defeat. If a newly promoted club has a hope of survival, they usually need to make their home ground a fortress. So watching Man City spank 6 past their defence using the once proud Villa Park as their own private urinal, it was just embarrassing. What's more, it left them rooted in the relegation zone, coming just 2 weeks after a 3-0 defeat to Watford. Let's be honest, this was the moment Dean Smith should probably be shown the door. That man has about as much chance of galvanising a Premier League squad as I do of growing a third nipple. Bournemouth 4-1 versus Newcastle. Listen, Bournemouth this season have been utter cow pudding. Their complete lack of backbone and mental strength can be summed up by the moral compass of Ryan Fraser, but more on him in another video. Where do we start? Right, I'm tempted to pick the Christmas period, where they lost 4 games in a row to a bunch of relegation rivals. Brighton, West Ham, Watford and Norwich, scoring a combined 10 goals to Bournemouth 0. Let's be honest, this was probably the string of results that got them relegated. But the lowest of the low, the rock bottom moment. Fast forward to July 1st, a do or die crunch home clash with Newcastle, a team who really had nothing to play for. Half the side were probably mentally booking flights to Magaluf, and yet Bournemouth still lose 4-1 at home, with Alan Saint-Maximin spending the evening eating chunks of Eddie Howe's career for dinner. This was probably the game where Bournemouth fans probably started preparing for 2021 trips to Rotherham and Wickham. Brighton 3-1 versus Bournemouth. Listen lads, have Brighton really hit a rock bottom low moment this season? Sure, they've had bad results, but ever since that opening day 3-0 win at Watford, they've been fairly comfortable. I suppose the rock bottom moment was probably a 3-1 defeat at relegation rivals Bournemouth on the 21st of January. It meant the Seagulls had won just once in 9 games, left them just 2 points above the drop zone. Yeah, they were probably briefly worried. Burnley 3-0 versus Sheffield United. Again, like Brighton, this season has been unspectacular but steady enough for Burnley. No real threat of relegation at any point. A rock bottom moment? Let's go for early November, where they were chewed apart 3-0 at Sheffield United. Chris Wilder's men were basically Burnley Mark II, the same way Burnley were Stoke Mark II. So being absolutely destroyed by the Blades, it must have felt like this was the passing of the guard. I mean, the previous week they'd allowed an out-of-form Christian Pulisic to scoop a hat-trick at Turf Moor, and now they were continuing to defend like a bunch of drunken hillbillies. John Lundstrom could have had a hat-trick that day, and with the state of his contract talks all year, he was lucky enough not to be sleeping on the street. Chelsea 2-0 versus Southampton. Chelsea are the literal kings of inconsistency this season. How can one club both lose 4-0 to Man United in the league, only to smash them 3-1 in an FA Cup semi-final? The rock bottom moment though, a 2-0 home defeat to Southampton on Boxing Day. Both Michael Obafemi and Nathan Redmond scored the goals, but lads, it wasn't even close. Ralph Hasenhüttl's men absolutely picked Chelsea apart as if they were Barcelona. It was a complete and utter tactical assassination. It was their 3rd home defeat in a row, scoring 0 goals along the way. This was probably the first moment people started asking serious questions about Frank Lampard. Being absolutely torn apart by a team who recently lost by 9 goals at home, and didn't even left Danny Ings on the bench. Crystal Palace 1-0 versus Newcastle. This hasn't been a particularly thrilling season for Crystal Palace fans. Christ above, they just lost 6 games in a row. But what do you expect when you persist with chucking Christian Benteke up front every game? He's about as mobile as a bag of sand. Their lowest moment? Let's go for 4 days before Christmas, when not only did Palace fans travel 7 hours on a urine-soaked megabus to sit in the freezing cold, watching one of the worst ever games known to man. Honestly, you'd have had better entertainment watching 2 turtles trying to mate. The fact they weren't even rewarded with a point, conceding a late goal to Miguel Almiron, a guy who hadn't scored in over a year and whose confidence had been stuffed down a shower drain, it was quite embarrassing. Almiron in 2019, he couldn't have located a goal on Google Maps, so actually conceding a winner to this guy, ending his goal drought against your club, is like admitting you were the one who popped the cherry of Susan Boyle. Everton 1-0 versus Liverpool. And many of you will probably point to Everton's 5-2 Derby Day defeat at Anfield in early December, which cost Marco Silva his job, but you know what, I'm not even picking that one. I think a month later, when Everton's first team were being dumped out of the FA Cup by Liverpool school kids, that was much more undignified. This was literal men against boys, and Everton still couldn't score at Anfield. Carlo Ancelotti had chucked £40 million Brazilian superstars, 15 goal a season strikers, £50 million playmakers, £30 million strikers, former Premier League champions, England England number ones, Irish captains, Champions League semi-finalists, FA Cup winners, former Barcelona left-backs, you name it, he put them out on that pitch, and yet they still get played off the park by a bunch of Scouse teenagers. It was pretty unforgivable, as Fabian Delph found out when he just spent the evening arguing with 12-year-olds on Instagram. Leicester 4-1 versus Bournemouth. I'm not sure what has happened to Leicester in the last 6 months, because ever since a 4-1 away win at Villa Park, which put them second in the league, 14 points out of 5th spot after 16 games, they've well and truly bottled it. I could go for a 4-0 home defeat to Liverpool, which drowned their faint title hopes in a bath. I could touch on a 1-0 defeat at Norwich, which almost caused Leicester fans to cry into their morning muesli, but I won't. Leicester's rock bottom moment came just 2 weeks ago, losing 4-1 at Bournemouth. Leicester trying to apply for Champions League football when they just conceded 2 against Thomas Solanke is like trying to get into a 5-star VIP nightclub when you've just spent the week sleeping in a ditch and eating duck vomit for breakfast. Liverpool 3-0 versus Watford. Okay, I can count the number of rock bottom moments for Liverpool this season on about 3 goddamn fingers. I'm not even going to consider either defeats at the Emirates or the Etihad, considering they'd already won the league title by then. I don't think any Liverpool fan really gave 2 hoots. So I suppose, let's say, a 3-0 defeat at Vicarage Road in February. No, it didn't make a flicker of difference to the title race, but still, it was probably a big dent to the ego for the current European champions to be slapped around by Troy Deeney and Nigel Pearson. Man City 3-2 versus Wolves. By contrast, where do you want to start with rock bottom moments for Man City? I considered the 3-2 defeat at Carrow Road, but that was only the 5th game of the season. A 3-1 defeat at Anfield in November was damaging, but again, they still had hope of clawing back 9 points over the next 26 games. The 3-2 defeat at Wolves though, 2 days after Christmas, surrendering a 2-goal lead to completely throw the game away. Benjamin Mendy was largely at fault. I'm surprised Pep Guardiola didn't have him sold within a week. This opened up a potential 16-point gap, put them 3rd in the league. They were closer to the relegation zone than they were at the top of the table. Absolute rock bottom moment. Man United 1-0 versus Newcastle. Listen, I'm tempted to pick that 2-1 defeat against a bunch of school teachers and mechanics from Kazakhstan, but I guess Man United did fill their starting 11 with practical children and Jesse Lingard, so I guess it wouldn't have exactly sounded alarm bells for the first team. So how about a 1-0 defeat at St James's Park in early October? Matty Longstaff scored the only goal in his debut. Marcus Rashford spent the entire game sneezing in the cold with his back to goal. It put them 12th in the league, 15 points behind Liverpool, and came just 2 weeks after losing away at West Ham. Lads, I genuinely wouldn't have been surprised to see Solskjaer sacked after this game. Newcastle 5-0 versus Leicester. Speaking of Newcastle, no set of fans have been more actively wanting their manager sacked this season than Geordies after a 5-0 defeat at Leicester in late September. Let's be honest, being told that you're replacing a Champions League winning coach with Steve Bruce, it's like trading in your £7 million mansion for a dusty old bin bag. And a 5-0 surrender at Leicester, coming a week after shamefully allowing Brighton 71% possession of the ball at St James's Park, after a defeat at Anfield, a home draw against bottom club Watford, a 3-1 defeat at Norwich, and a stale 1-0 home loss against Arsenal. It left Newcastle 19th in the league with 5 points from 7 games. Absolute rock bottom moment. Norwich 4-0 versus West Ham. Again, picking a rock bottom moment in a season where you lose nearly 30 games, where do you want to start? You know what, I'm going to go with the game that relegated Norwich, losing 4-0 at home to West Ham. An embarrassing surrender, allowing Mikel Antonio to score 4 goals at Carrow Road. The Norwich players might as well have taken to the pitch waving mini white flags. Sheffield United 3-0 versus Newcastle. This has been a great season for Sheffield United. There's not been too many rock bottom moments. Maybe a 3-0 defeat at Newcastle just 1 week after the restart. This was a poor result, very uncharacteristically sloppy, and the fact they allowed Joe Linton to register a goal, just how? Southampton 9-0 versus Leicester. I mean, no real surprises here. The game which turned Southampton Football Club into a massive laughing stock. Not only was this Southampton's 3rd home loss in a row, it was a 9-0 defeat, conceding 9 goals at home against Leicester City. Tell any Leicester fan, after watching 2 opposing players both score hat-tricks in 90 minutes at their ground, tell them they go on to beat Chelsea, Spurs, Leicester, Man City, sit 11th in the league after 37 games with a 20-goal-a-season striker on their books, they'd probably have you committed. Tottenham 7-2 versus Bayern Munich. This was a result Mauricio Pochettino never recovered from. Is it any surprise he was gone within 6 weeks? A Champions League finalist, watching his Tottenham team collapse, shipping 7 goals at home to Bayern Munich, watching an Arsenal reject score 4 times in Tottenham's brand spanking new stadium, it was nothing short of another disgrace. Watford 8-0 versus Man City. This was a result which had Watford staring headfirst at relegation. 3rd week of September, they picked up just 2 points from 5 games and they shipped 8, yes 8 at the Etihad. This would have triggered PTSD flashbacks from their hammering in the FA Cup final, so getting absolutely roasted by 8 goals. Guessing this was pretty traumatic for everyone involved. West Ham 3-3 versus Brighton. Okay, the only game in this list which wasn't a defeat, but lads, it might as well have been. This would have been like a punch to the ovaries for West Ham. This was a 6-point relegation clash with Brighton in early February. They hadn't won in 5 games, they're winning 3-1 with 15 minutes left, and then they splutter to a 3-3 draw to keep them in the relegation zone. Probably the moment West Ham fans wanted David Moyes chucked down the door. Wolves 5-2 versus Chelsea. This has turned out to be a great season for Wolves, but it did not look like it was heading that way. After failing to win any of their opening 6 league games, this looked destined to be one of those European hangover seasons, like Burnley when they qualified for the Europa League. A 5-2 home defeat to Chelsea, a supposed top 4 rival. Watching Tammy Abraham, a guy guy who rejected Wolves in January of that year, watching him score a hat-trick against your defence. I'd imagine that was about as much fun as swallowing a rolling pin. Anyway, that's the end of it, lads. If there's any other rock bottom moments, let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and as always, I'll talk to you in a while.